Well, I think it's safe to say that Mother Nature has thoroughly kicked my ass.
I just said, yes, man, right away, anything.
If you've been wondering where the update was for the beer garden, I tried to do an update 3 times. Every time I did, there was a new calamity, and I had to record again. And then by the time I got that editing done, there was another storm. So all of the damage that you're seeing behind me is from storms. The first one basically came through and it stomped my barley and wheat and made it look like an elephant decided to take a nap in there overnight. I mean, it was pancaked all over the place. That's an effect called lodging, and it happens when storms come through and they just knock your grain flat and it bends the stalks and they usually die. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's something that every farmer has to deal with. If you have a big farm, it's not a problem. They just account for about 10% of their crop is going to get lost due to pests or weather damage. There are things that you can do to prevent that, which I have since learned, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And you can kind of see this stringy grid. That's what I did to try and fix the lodging. I went through and I waited for the grain to dry a little bit, the stalks to dry after the rain stopped, fluffed them up a little bit, and then I ran this grid through and hoped that would basically help the grain stay upright a little and not just get smushed flat if we had another storm. That did in fact work, but the damage was already done. And so it all just slowly started dying over the next week. As I went through and started harvesting the wheat, once the stalks had dried out, I would roll these little seed pods, these wheat seed pods, through my fingers and feel no seeds in them. And every once in a while I would feel a seed, but most of the seed pods that I harvested were empty, or just they had an immature kernel in them. So basically what that tells me is that either it wasn't fully ready by the time the rain came and killed it, or more likely I didn't have enough sunshine and I didn't have enough nutrition. I didn't have enough nutrients in the soil to actually support a healthy crop. I don't know if you can see all that sand in there. This is marketed by the dirt company that's nearby as vegetable garden soil. It's got too much sand in it and too much wood chips, so it drains really fast. And because it drains really fast, it won't hold water, so you have to water it literally every day. Now, if you water stuff every day, it pulls the nutrients. They just wash right through the soil really fast. So I almost had to double fertilize everything, much more often than is recommended on the packages. So all that died, and I was really depressed. But I felt like, okay, well, at least I've got my corn. My corn is doing good. At least I'll have a good corn crop, right? Not so much. A really asshole-ish kind of wind came through, and it just decimated my corn. It was just rain, straight down for hours, and then all of a sudden, it was just this twisty, awful, smashy kind of wind, and it pounded the corn for a good 5 straight minutes and just knocked it all down. So we've got about 20% of the crop is still standing, and I posted a picture on YouTube that you may have seen, and a lot of you suggested just leave it alone, continue to water it, and it'll still grow. And you know, some of it of course is going to die, but some of it will stand back up, and some of it will continue to grow even though it's laying on the ground. That is true, and I wish I had posted that before I tried something. I tried to stand everything back up, and in doing that I snapped off this one, but weirdly it's still growing. If your corn gets blown over, just leave it alone. Continue to water it and fertilize it as needed, but leave it alone. Since corn is technically wind pollinated, You grow it in blocks and the wind jostles everything around and it knocks the pollen down onto the silks, and there you go. Now if you're in a massive field, that always works. If you're at home, one of the things you may have to do is you gotta have sex with your plants. You have to collect some of the pollen and then come and actually blow it. You gotta give your corn a blowjob. You gotta, get some of that pollen in your hand and then blow it onto those silks so that it gets it on there and it fertilizes everything. I'm not making this up. Everything that I grew was stressed. The wheat and barley shot up and bolted seed too early. It wasn't ready to bolt seed that quick, but it did anyway. And that's usually because it's stressed out. Like I said, not enough sun, not enough nutrition, stuff like that will stress out the plants, and they try to throw seed early in order to survive for the next season. The corn did the same thing. So what's supposed to happen is the pollen comes out at the same time, or roughly the same time as your corn silks do, so that they can get pollinated with fresh pollen all at the same time. But almost all of these threw their pollen too early. Like this one, see all the pollen dangling off of those tassels? Well, there's no frickin' corn growing on here. So all that's just gonna fall off and go nowhere. It's not gonna help this plant at all. It might help some of the others, but it's not gonna help this one. But the good thing about all of this kind of tragedy is I've learned a lot. Here's the good news. We are going to get some corn out of this. I don't know how much, but it'll be enough to play with. And like I said, I'm just learning a ton. Here's the other little bit of good news. Hops is doing really well. Coming along over here. And as you can see, we've already got some flower clusters growing in. So cross your fingers. So I'm going to collect some of this pollen and sprinkle it. And remember, I got two kinds of corn in here, red and blue. The red is up here closer to the camera and the blue is towards the back. You want to collect the pollen from those separately so that the pollen that's supposed to go with the plant is going on the plant. I'm going to go through and very carefully walk through all that and basically be a corn pimp. Alright, so we've harvested the pollen and pollinated all of the ears of corn that I could find, and now we just wait until basically the corn grows to its full maturity and then the stalks die off and dry. And then we'll have some nice dry corn that we can grind up and do some crazy experiments with. So the next update on the beer garden is going to be probably a couple of months from now when this stuff is done. But I've got plenty more videos in the pipeline to start posting and some interesting experiments I'm getting ready to start. So if you'd like to follow along with those, hit the subscribe button down below and make sure you hit the bell icon right next to it so you can get notified when I post new content. And if you enjoyed this, if you learned anything about how to grow or not grow corn, wheat, and barley, do me a favor, hit the like button because it really helps out the channel. If you have any questions or comments, constructive criticism is always welcome. Post it down below. All right, thanks for watching. Talk at you later.